Hello, everybody. Bethany Dotson, relationship coach and trauma-sensitive somatic therapist. And today I want to talk to you about the number one shift needed to have healthy relationships, not just romantic partners, not just learning how to choose better in your love life, but having better relationships with your kids, with family members that trigger you, with coworkers that trigger you after you've experienced narcissistic abuse. And I'm going to talk about what that shift is. I'm going to talk about a big stumbling block or stuck point that a lot of people find themselves in. They think that they're healing, they think they've done the work, and yet their attraction patterns keep happening. I'm going to talk about why that really is. And I'm also going to talk about the steps that you can start taking if you're ready to truly change your ways. So let's get into it. The biggest shift that you need to make if you are truly ready to open your life, and by the way, let me go back a minute. When I say truly ready, you're never going to feel truly ready. Learning to let love in again and to be vulnerable and to allow yourself to need somebody and to allow yourself to want love again, that's always going to feel like a risk to a certain extent. If you've experienced psychological abuse, it just is. So you're never going to feel fully ready. You will know you are more ready when you increasingly feel like you are tired of living in Groundhog's Day. The idea of how do you know when it's a good time to let go of a sick pet, or a pet who's getting up there in age, or a pet who's been diagnosed with a terminal disease. How do you know when it's time? It's kind of the same concept. When you start having more bad days than good days, this is your signal that it's time. The universe is tapping you or whacking you upside the head that it's time for you to start initiating change and transformation in your life. So let's talk about this shift. Let's get right into it. I got off on a tangent. The number one shift is choosing radical self-honesty over self-protection. So what is radical self-honesty? Well, actually, let's back up. What is self-protection? How do you know if you're living in self-protection mode? If you've experienced a narcissistic marriage, if you got out of that marriage and then you started dating and you wound up with dating more emotionally inconsistent, unavailable people, feeling like you're always the person doing the work, chasing these people, constantly feeling anxious about where you stand in that dating scenario, you're choosing self-protection in those moments. So self-protection will look like avoidance, avoiding hard conversations, avoiding the truth about a situation in your life. You probably did this with your ex. I can't tell you how many women, I've been one of these women who have, or men, I've been having a lot of men reach out lately, so I don't want to exclude men in this scenario. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken with over the years who, when I ask them, and I don't let them get away with their excuse making, when I ask them and really kind of hold their feet to the fire about when they first noticed signs of trouble with their relationship, very often it's like within the first month, and they just ignored that. So one of the biggest signs that you're living in self-protection mode is avoiding the truth. And we avoid the truth about most things. We avoid hard truth. We avoid things that we don't want to do because we are, as human beings, wired to seek pleasure and wired to avoid pain. So it's a general thing. But more specifically, if you find that you're in a pattern in relationships where you feel like you never get your needs met, or you always feel disappointed, or you constantly find that you're with people who are emotionally abusive or emotionally inconsistent, or they just don't have the capacity to open up emotionally, it's because this, there's a part of you that is avoiding the truth, or you're avoiding potential abandonment by being with these people. When we are in self-protection after we've left, this is where most people live, and this is what most people find themselves in after they've left a narcissistic relationship, is that they turn to work and their career to fill the void of the chaos that used to be their relationship. They find that they continue to maintain friendships and even work-related relationships that feel increasingly misaligned or that feel draining because they don't want to upset somebody else. They don't want to come across as being mean, or they might fear that if they let go of that relationship, then they're not going to have anybody in their life. So they will find that they maintain misaligned relationships for longer than the expiration date. This is another way of living in self-protection. They use work as the biggest thing to create their identity after they've let go of a bad marriage. The marriage or the relationship consumed a ton of their identity. They over-identified as being the wife or the partner of XYZ. And now that that's gone, they need something to take that place. Workaholism, emotional avoidance, avoiding conflict, avoiding hard conversations, avoiding your own inner gut signals about somebody or a scenario in your life. These are all forms of self-protection. And most of us do this because we are afraid of abandonment. We're not conscious that we're afraid of abandonment. In the moment that we're ignoring a red flag, it's like we have this knee-jerk reaction that we're going to give somebody the benefit of a doubt. That's a story, by the way. We sense something is amiss. We get that gut feeling in our body. We don't like that feeling. That feeling is really inconvenient. We don't want to be feeling it. And in a nanosecond, we tell ourselves, it's probably nothing. I'm probably overreacting. I need to get to know this person sooner. We kind of gaslight ourselves out of that feeling. And we ignore it because in most situations where, especially relationship situations that turn abusive, they're not all abusive. They're not always emotionally volatile or chaotic. There are many good times, and so it's this intermittent reinforcement that keeps us in that feeling of we don't want to lose that feeling. And yes, it's about not wanting to lose that feeling, but even deeper, like getting to the root cause of this pattern, is that we don't want to be left. And you find that you're constantly with people who leave you in some form or fashion. This always traces back to an earlier abandonment in your life. And that is something that your body has memorized as a template for relationships, unfortunately. Now, you can unmemorize this, and we'll talk about getting to that in a second. But back to self-protection forms. These are forms of self-protection. Another form of self-protection that's super common after a narcissistic relationship is avoiding dating for very long periods of time. And not just avoiding dating, but avoiding any real sense of emotional closeness with anyone. You might have people in your life. You might have friends that you meet up with on a regular basis. You might have a church group, you might have coworkers, but when you're really honest, nobody really knows the level or the depth of things that you're going through. You might not even know that. You might be so good at self-protection that you don't even give yourself a chance to breathe during the day. And this is not, this doesn't mean that you're a bad person. This isn't blaming you in any way. After you experience narcissistic trauma, most people live and continue to live for a long time afterwards until this is properly resolved in a state of fight or flight all the time. If it's not the relationship, they're constantly busy doing something. And a lot of times this pattern of chronic busyness keeps us in a state of avoidance, emotional avoidance. It keeps us emotionally numb. It keeps us exhausted all the time so that we really don't have the bandwidth to think about ourselves or to focus on ourselves. So that's another way that you might be living in self-protection versus radical self-honesty. So those are a lot of the ways self-protection will show up in your life, and it shapes the trajectory of your life. The biggest cost of living with self-protection is that it creates a very small life. You might have a great job, you might have a great home, you might, by most people's standards, look and appear successful, but underneath that mask, if you will, is somebody who inherently doesn't feel fulfilled or happy in their life. They can't quite pinpoint why. Nothing is really wrong. They just don't feel alive anymore. And this is a symptom of living with long-term or chronic CPTSD, living in a trauma response, living in a state of fight or flight long after you've exited that relationship. And what happens when your life starts feeling small is something really fascinating. Our bodies get accustomed to that feeling. We might not like it. We consciously are aware that we don't like this living in this life. There's plenty of things that you might want to change about your life. Yet, there's a lot of resistance to change as well. And there's this holding pattern that happens for a lot of people after narcissistic abuse, where they want to change. They want more passion in their life. They want to live a more fulfilling life. They want love again, but they don't want all of the potential bad stuff that might come with it, because their past experience tells them that anytime they've opened up, anytime that they've wanted to rely on somebody, anytime they've been vulnerable, it has been used against them. They have learned that relying on somebody and being vulnerable is very dangerous. It's been emotionally dangerous. It's cost them a lot. So there's this inner conflict that we tend to live in. We want change, we want to transform, and at the same time, we are resistant to it. And what that is essentially is your body living in self-protection. And this doesn't mean that you will never change. It doesn't mean that transformation is out of reach for you. It doesn't mean that you'll never find love. I think I said that right. Did I use a double net? It doesn't mean that all hope is lost for you. It just means that from the neck down, you're still trying to create safety. Your body and your subconscious programming from trauma are trying to keep you safe. What we have to do to shift out of that, the very first step to shift out of that, is being radically self-honest with ourselves rather than blaming the people in your area. I live in a big city. There are lots of unavailable people in my area. I live in a small city. There aren't very many available people in my area. I'm over 50. My pickings are slim pickings for people over 50. Well, men over 50 haven't done any work on themselves. These are all forms of self-protection, by the way. What we have to do to shift away from that and to start retraining ourselves that it's safe to love again, that we're safe to trust ourselves again, that we're emotionally safe, and that we will continue to be emotionally safe even if we meet somebody that is another unsavory experience, is that we have to start being very brutally honest by getting to the reasons why. Why is it that I'm really blaming the lack of people in my area? Why is it that I really continue to wind up dating emotionally inconsistent people, even when I know every fucking thing about the narcissist, even when I know all about my anxious attachment style, even when I've had 10 years of therapy? Like, why do I keep doing this? And for a lot of people, the truth that they avoid is that they continue choosing these unfavorable decisions and keep choosing, and yes, it's a choice, keep choosing unavailable people because on some level they feel safer. Unavailable people in the long run are never going to require that you become vulnerable. There's not any room for that. Unavailable people they don't ask much of you. They don't require emotional bandwidth from you. They end up consuming a lot of your bandwidth over time, the more energy you give to something like this, but they're never going to ask you to step fully into your potential. And for people who have experienced psychological trauma, this sense of remaining invisible and this sense of remaining like not quite seen, in a lot of ways feels safer than really being seen by somebody. So that's the shift, is choosing radical self-honesty. It's not the only shift, but it's like one of the most important ones. And like I said, when you continue to live in a place of self-protection, you will find over time that your life feels smaller and smaller and smaller. Part of you will want change. Part of you will want a great partner. Part of you will want to quit your shitty job and start your own business. Part of you will want to move to Alaska. Part of you will want to do all the things that you've been dreaming of doing all your life. And then you'll be met with your inner opponent. You'll be met with that resistance. You'll be met with a part of you that's trying to keep you safe. And what happens for a lot of people, unfortunately, is they listen to the safety. They listen to the coping strategy. They listen to their old trauma that is trying to protect them. And they wind up becoming an expert on their own dysfunction. They know that they have childhood trauma. They know about narcissistic abuse. They can spot one a mile away. They know about their narcissistic mother or father, and yet they don't change their lives. And this is the trap. A lot of people will confuse being self-honest or self-honesty with self-awareness. But self-awareness doesn't change your patterns. You can be self-aware. You can be aware. I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to that told me I walked down the aisle knowing it was a mistake, but I couldn't stop myself. I just went through with it. Like, you can be incredibly self-aware and still fall into these patterns, not because you're stupid or you lack of intelligence or whatever. It's not because there's something fundamentally wrong with you. There's not. It's simply because you're trying to keep yourself safe. The thing that's going to ironically create the most safety and the most joy in your life and the reemergence of passion in your life and the big shift in who you start dating and the relationships that you start bringing into your life is putting yourself in unsafe initially. Not unsafe meaning you're going to go rob a bank or speed down the highway at 100 miles an hour, not those unsafe situations, but what you might initially feel unsafe emotionally doing. Putting yourself in unsafe, meaning vulnerable situations that are going to create an opening for you to practice staying open and to practice what I call strategic vulnerability, and I'll talk about that in a later episode, so that your body can learn that it's safe to be open again. It's safe to feel emotionally vulnerable and nothing bad's going to happen. And even if something bad happens, you are retraining your body to get back up again with less emotional suffering, without building the story that you are fundamentally broken and you're not meant for love. What are the steps? What is the readiness point for you? Like I said before, when you're having more bad days than good is usually a strong indicator that you're ready for change. Another window or other windows that indicate that you are ready, oftentimes right after you've gotten out of another shitty relationship, even though you did all the right things to heal from your last one, and you're super self-aware and somehow it happened again, that's often a strong entry point. Another strong entry point is something in your life has changed, like your kids have gone off to college, you're a new empty nester, maybe you just lost a career that your entire identity was built upon and you have no idea who you are anymore and you feel like you're flailing, or maybe your ex got remarried and it's been 5 years since the divorce and he's already moved on, and why haven't you? So these are some other indicators that your future vision is tapping you on the shoulder, inviting you to step in and meet your dream halfway. Another strong indicator is that you feel more called, more pulled by the excitement and the possibility of what an amazing relationship, an amazing future, an amazing life could be for you. You can actually start to imagine that and get a little excited about that, and that's more of a stronger motivator for you than the fear of what could go wrong. If you are still living in the fear of what could go wrong, it's not that change isn't possible for you. It just means that you're likely going to need something stronger to kind of push you out of that comfort safety zone of what could go wrong, because this is often a big hiding place that I see a lot of women and men hang out in. All right, what could go wrong? Like if I meet somebody else that's another unavailable person, what could go wrong if I try this and it doesn't work out? Like that's a really big hiding place. And if you're living more there than you are of like what I really, really want, there's probably a little bit more work, or something in your life probably has to fall apart. Things in your life essentially have to deteriorate even further probably before you're finally ready psychologically to step in to transformation. So, final word that I'll say here is that this type of trauma, narcissistic trauma, emotional trauma that shows up in your life as relationship patterns isn't just healed with insight. It's not healed by logical awareness. That can be super helpful. That will get you like a leg of the journey. But the other legs of the journey is learning to retrain your body to be safe with emotional intimacy, learning to retrain your subconscious mind that love and relationships don't mean that you overfunction or that you have to overgive or that you people please or that you sacrifice yourself. A lot of these patterns that we carry in our relationship, romantic relationships, even family relationships and friendships, etc., come from stuff that we picked up long, long ago. I'm sure you're aware of that. But even when you're aware of that, you still find that you do it because it's something that is in here that's an automatic knee-jerk response. Even though you know better, logically, it's not enough. Only 5% of your behavior is dictated by logic. The other 95% of your behavior is subconscious. It's all about like what you're feeling in your body, emotional reactions, subconscious programs, embedded memories that are stored in the cells of your body. That is the dictator of your behavior. And most therapies and traditional coaching models focus just with what's up here. So you need a holistic, bottom-up, like incorporating the body in your healing and in your transformation. And you need real life practice to employ the new things that you're learning and gaining experience in real life. So if you're interested in how you can start shifting your relationships after narcissistic abuse, especially if you feel like you've healed after narcissistic abuse, but you're still stuck, you're still feeling like a workaholic, your life feels really small, you're dating emotionally unavailable people, even though you know better and like, why do I keep doing this? Then my free training will help you learn more solidly the shifts that you need to make. You can go to BethanyDotson.com/talk to book a free discovery session, and we'll have an honest conversation about changing your life. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.